Hello there. If you are a writer or designer using this dialogue system, I'm going to get you started setting up characters in Excel and getting the conversations ready to use. So each character that you're going to set up is going to have one CSV file. So you're going to be editing this in Excel and then exporting it as a CSV file, which a coder or designer, whoever, will be using in Unity to set up. So each Excel format is going to have these categories at the top. And I'm going to give you an empty version of this so you can fill it in. Um, so just to walk you through, we got quest requirements, item requirements, conversation IDs. Oh, I meant to delete this. Ignore this. The dialogue itself, repeat requirements, and then triggers. So each conversation ID is going to be matching the same conversation. So these are all called brother one. So this is all going to be the same conversation. So when you're talking with this NPC, first they're going to read this, then this. So I press click to progress, and then I read this one. So that's how the dialogue is going to work. The quest requirements are going to be tags that we have marked as complete or not. So um, if I if someone is asking me to go and like fetch a shovel and then bring it back to them, I'm going to check here. Do I have the shovel? Um, and if so, I'm going to play this dialogue. If not, we're going to go with a different option. So the quest could be anything. It could be talking to any, whatever you want it to be. Doesn't really matter. Um, Item requirements, I'm going to skip for now. I think we're going to make that a future thing just to simplify. And then the conversation ID is how we're grouping the dialogue lines. Um, Repeat requirements are conditions that need to be met for us to go past this conversation. So let's say I need to go get that shovel, but I don't have it yet. If I put the shovel repeat requirement here, it's going to keep replaying this text until I have the shovel. And then triggers are things that are set um, after this conversation is done. So this is the name of a quest. Are you my brother? After we have this conversation, this quest is set to complete. So that is going to affect other conversations going forward. So right here we have only one conversation, but if we expand this to be what a full character is probably going to look closer to. Now we have one, two, three, four conversations, and they're kind of smushed together, but uh, they're still separate. Um, One important thing to note is whenever you're adding a quest requirement, a repeat requirement, or a trigger, it needs to be in the first line of the conversation. So here we have two lines for Brother 3, but all of the requirements and triggers and whatnot, they're all set in the very first topmost line of Brother 3. Same here for Brother 1, we have a trigger and it's being set in the very top line. Brother 2 has a repeat requirement and it's being set in the top line. So if I'm here in Brother 3 and I want a trigger, but I put it here on the second line instead of the first, it's not gonna be parsed. So that's an important syntax thing to note here. Also notice that anywhere that we're not using a category, so we're not using a quest requirement for this first conversation, we need to put the tilde symbol. You can't just leave it blank. This is going to cause an error. So make sure anything that's empty, put a tilde symbol. That's how we know that there's nothing there, and we can just move on past. Um, so looking at this a little closer, this first conversation, after we have it, so this is the first time we're walking up to this NPC. After we have this conversation, we set this quest to being complete, and then after our conversation is done, we end the interaction. So we have to go back up to them to talk to them again. So let's say we go back up to them. We're having the second conversation, and here, if you read it, it says they're asking for us to chop down a tree. So until this quest, tree chopped, is complete, we're gonna keep asking them to chop down a tree because here we're saying, "Oh, thanks for chopping down the tree," but we don't want to play this until the tree's been chopped, right? So we're gonna keep this one going, and then assuming we come back having chopped the tree, then we continue to the third conversation. It says, "Oh, thanks for chopping the tree." Um, and notice we have a quest requirement here, so it's not going to play this unless the tree is chopped. And then this is going to set the quest Good Brother to complete. And then this last one, if we go up to them again, it'll just say, "What a lovely day, what a brotherly connection." I just made this up, I'm tired. And then another important thing is the very last conversation on a file is going to be the one that repeats continuously every time you go up to an NPC after every other conversation has been exhausted. So unless a conversation has a repeat requirement like this one, the first time that you read the conversation is going to be the last one. So after we read this first one, the next time you go up to the NPC, it's going to skip this. It's going to be marked as read, and it's going to go to the next one, the next playable one. Um, so, but except for the last one, this one's going to repeat no matter what. So I know it's a little confusing to look at first, but it'll become a little easy to use once you get used to it. Here's another example. So here we have 3 different conversations. So this first one has a requirement, are you my brother? This is a quest. So um, here, if we've talked to this, if we've had this conversation with this NPC, we've marked are you my brother as complete. So anything that's in a trigger, it's going to mark it as complete. You don't have to really specify that. So just put the tag in there. So if we've talked to the NPC, this quest requirement is going to be met and we can have this conversation. If you haven't talked to the NPC, the requirement isn't met, so it's just going to skip this whole one right to here. Oh, hey there, what's up? But if you've talked to the other NPC, oh, you want to chop down a tree? Well, what? And then a trigger for this one, first of all, we mark the tree chopped quest as true. Second of all, we have rando 2 as a trigger in here. So a trigger doesn't have to be only a quest. You could also put a conversation ID. It has to be for the same NPC of the file. So here it's going to mark rando 2 as already being read. So in the event that we talk to the other NPC first and he asks us to chop down the tree, we come here and it's gonna tell us to skip over this line, um, because why would we greet somebody if we've already been talking about chopping down trees and whatnot? So then the next time you come to this NPC, we're gonna skip to this line, and then this is gonna be the one that repeats. And I know it'll be easier to have an actual example to see how this is working in game, but that's the basic format. Um, I also have a doc that I made that I'll share that you can just read through and has a little more specific stuff on there that hopefully is straightforward. One last thing is when you have multiple of anything. So maybe there's a conversation that has multiple quest requirements, or multiple triggers. Like this one has 2 different triggers. So with each of these, if any quest name or conversation ID or anything, there's going to be no spaces in it because this is going to be read by code. It needs to be all one thing, and and everything needs to start with a hashtag. So conversation IDs, quest names, all has to start with a hashtag, and then no spaces. So then if we have multiple, we put a space in between them here, right there. It's kind of hard to see. And that's how we check for multiple things. So here we have a quest requirement. Here we're marking a quest as red, but where are these quests existing? There's a spot called the quest list, which is going to have every quest in the game. So this little mini example has only 3 quests. Um, Notice they each start with a hashtag. None of them have spaces. So this file is just a single list. Um, this is just a header. So this was ignored. You can just keep this here. It'll ignore the first line. And then the rest of it is just going to be a list of quest name down here. And then similarly, we need to have an item list. We're skipping items for now. We're not going to go over that. But this is also something we need to have set up. It can just be blank for now. But the system needs an item list and a quest list to be able to parse the NPC dialogue. So let's say you've set up your NPC how you want. This right now is in an Excel format, which Unity doesn't know what to do anything with. So we have to export it to a CSV file. And so that's a comma delineated file. And to do that, so when we export this regularly, because of the Excel settings, it's going to delineate with a semicolon, but we want to delineate with, or wait, actually I can't remember. It's either it's the way we don't want it, one way or another, either a semicolon or a comma. Yeah, I think it's we don't want it to be a comma. We want it to be a semicolon. That's what it is. So go in here to File, Options, Advanced, and then here, instead of using system separators, we're going to switch these. I don't know how well you can see it, but we want the decimal separator to actually be a comma. We want the thousand separator to be a decimal. Press OK. And now when it's delineated, it's not going to be by comma, it's going to be by semicolon, and that's how the system reads it. So now we can go to File, Export, change file type, and then we're going to do CSV, comma, delimited. Put this wherever you want it to. I usually stick everything on the desktop. I've already exported this, I'm not actually going to do it. And then we'll be ready to import this into Unity. And we need to do the same thing with the quest list. So once you change that setting once, it'll save, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. But also export the quest list. We're gonna need that, and you can just keep the item list the same because that's gonna be empty. But we need all these files to be set up. However many NPCs you want, and then we will bring them into Unity. So let's say you've done that, and you've been experimenting and everything is going well, but then you need to make some changes to the file. So I'm going to open this one back up. Sometimes it'll like mess up the formatting for this, so an easy way to fix that, like maybe it's all like squished like this, or oop, that was too much. Squished like this or something. If you click this little corner and then do format auto fit column width, it'll snap everything really nicely. And sometimes I think this newer version of Excel opens CSV files correctly, but there was an older version that didn't. So if you're having an issue with that, part of this doc that I made that you can read through is how to set up the legacy wizard to import this correctly. Hopefully, you don't have to do that, but it's here if you need to. But yeah, I'm gonna go on and start explaining the coding part now. But hopefully, that is a good start for setting up the CSV files.